All right, we are streaming and we are recording. Oh, sorry, we get.
Not mining, the crafting, the actual making stuff.
All right, I'm gonna sneak in between you guys real quick. Do our intro. All right, guys. Hey, welcome everyone. I'm Roden, and you're watching Naked Trading in Albion, episode 3. We made it. All right, we got some more guests here and much larger Discord channel.
We got a full house today.
I know, right? We do. So we got Bogle from Albion Informer, fellow media person for Albion. I'm really glad, Bogle, you're actually our very, very first guest. That's actually not like a hardcore like Eve player. I'm really excited. We actually finally have someone from the other side, you know.
I'm happy to be here.
There you go, there you go. And then we have Deathmorn, kind of in and out of the game. He loves chopping down trees for some reason. That's all he does.
Saying he likes wood.
There you go. And finally, we have Caleb Aranya. That's I think. Did you start your alliance yet?
Yeah. We started the Albion Yetis under the Mogul banner from Eve. So yeah, it is formed.
There you go. And we have all our other folks here on in our Discord voice comms here as well. They'll chime in whenever they want to. All right, so I just want to start off with what's everybody been up to this past week. I know we said from the very beginning we try to make this like an every 2 week deal, but something always happens, and we have to like show up, you know. So that's good. That's good. Not hearing any audio. Why is that?
I think your audio is fine. I don't know if everyone else's audio is coming through. It should be.
Yeah, I can hear you fine, Roden.
Okay, great.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, a bit loud, but it's fine.
What about the stream? Is it coming through on the stream too?
I don't have it up.
I also don't have it open.
What about the stream? Is it coming through on the stream?
Yeah, it's coming through the stream.
All right.
But yeah, Roden, you are significantly louder than Caleb or Bogle.
Yeah, I put. Let me adjust that real quick. Adjusted Caleb already to max, so. Yeah, but what's everybody been up to this week? Anything crazy?
I actually moved in real life, so I haven't had a lot of time to do much of anything other than, chop down trees.
Yeah, anyone, how about you, Bogle? Anything crazy this week?
Well, not really. I mean, the DDoS stuff was kind of eating straight into my playtimes. So I was mostly clicking the login button, and then I saw that it's not working, or the server was down or whatnot. So I
log on and being logged out, right?
Yeah. So I don't know. Yesterday it worked fine. Today it worked fine. But early week I was looking at a down server most of the time, and dealing with the Iron Bank stuff. But that's for later, I suppose.
All right. How about you, Caleb? I fixed the audio here.
It's for later.
Well, I'm trying to race to get my.
All right.
And the guild island and the guild members' islands to max tier. So when they flip the switch and the silver price is double, that I'm not going to get hit.
Yeah, you basically. I didn't know that. So I was kind of running on the assumption.
Right? If you look at anything you do when you do repairs or anything like that, most of it will show you that there's a global discount of 50%. That means that at some point, when the silver faucet reaches a certain point, they're going to pull the plug, and every price should go up to create a proportional sink, right? And that's really what I'm waiting for and making sure that I don't get hit by.
It's 500 silver. So the global discount is based on an algorithm that kicks in at 500 silver at the gold price. And then it changes up to 1,000 silver, I think, per gold. And that dynamically adjusts the global discount.
Yeah, and right now we're at reaching around 200, 250-ish silver, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we're halfway there. So, well, I should be able to reach my goals before those discounts get changed. But I just want to be well prepared and not have to fucking take that hit from the silver cross.
Well, once we cross that, I mean, if it goes back down again, then it'll be under again, right? It's not a once you cross it, then it'll change forever.
Yeah, it goes up and down. So in theory, if you want to play that, you could maybe buy seats and then.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's because that's the only way you can get seeds right from that NPC.
Yeah, but I think it's a fluid transition, so it might not be fast enough to do that.
Oh really? That'll be interesting. I mean, I can't remember going through. I think the second time I joined Albion before the launch. I think it was already at a period where it already crossed that threshold. Because right now, it thinks these seem really, really cheap. That's probably why I think it's cheap.
I think seeds are the only. I might be mistaken. Maybe there's one or two more. But seeds, I think, are the only ones that is an in-game asset, except for like islands and repair cost and claim costs for territories and like launching
Aren't they
attacks.
all taken over by players? Well, not the islands, of course, but things like seeds. Because if I'm not mistaken, seeds are going to keep dropping and crashing as players spend focus and level up, right? Because its returns are a randomized thing, but it's 1 or 2 on each seed. So eventually, there's going to be more seeds created by players than the NPC seed value can ever come up with.
Well, you have certain return chances on if you use a seed, right? So if you plant a seed, you have, I think the highest one, the tier 8 one, has 93%, I think, return of the seed. And then you don't get double, you just get it back. And unless you cross the 100% threshold, then you have a slight chance. But if you don't use focus, you are below that 100%. So you're losing seeds as well if you don't use focus.
Okay, so that's
Oh wow.
that's the thing. There's no surplus. You can't actually proc it to get 2 seeds back on the higher tiers like you do in the lower ones.
Well, if you for carrots, it's pretty straightforward. If you don't use focus, you don't get a seed back because you have 0 return. But if you use focus, you have 200%, so you get 2 seeds back.
Yeah,
And then
and can't the other ones go above 100%? So there's a random chance of getting more than 1 back.
right,
And
right,
effectively
yes,
feeding the economy that way as well.
yes. But if you don't use the focus, then there's a chance that you lose the seed.
Yeah,
So
of
it's
course.
both ways.
Yeah, and that's what I meant with the fact that players, as they progress, spend focus, which is replenished all the time, to convert into potentially more and more seeds in the economy. But because they are advancing faster, the demand is going to keep going up faster theoretically, because as you move out of the lower tiers, new ones will come in and they will then have the increased demand. So again, I'm just trying to wrap my head around the whole design, but it looks as if the NPC service is going to be taken over by players on all the produce eventually, right?
That's the goal, at least, right?
I mean, I don't think they have this in their back pocket where they say, okay, we'll remove the seed vendor now. Maybe, but they never spoke of that. But if you just talk silver price for seeds, I think I have to agree with you that if you buy if you buy seeds from the auction houses, they should always be cheaper than the seed vendor prices because of
And I think
players,
it looks as if that's the goal. I do think that there's a lot of the NPC prices that look very arbitrarily picked and not really balanced. The fact that it's the same with the things like recycle values and returns on that. I'm a little bit puzzled at some of the mechanics, and I think there's also a few things that look buggy, or I don't know if it's working as intended. Like, I'm gonna ask again Bogle because he's the one with the most experience. When you recycle a huge stack of, say, a T3 item, and it says that you get a quarter of the raw material back, and that means a quarter of both of the 2 types of materials. Sometimes it just gives you one type and not the other.
I'm not exactly sure on the algorithm there that's used.
It's just weird because I was supposed to get 150 of one type and 50 of another type. That's what it said from the recycle guy.
Yeah.
And instead, I got 200 of one type and none of the other, which is kind of strange. And
That's not supposed to happen. do you
Yeah,
have that on video somewhere?
no, sadly not. But I was very surprised because it said 50 and 150, and then I suddenly had 200 wood instead. And it's like, how did this happen? Is this supposed to happen?
Take free
Probably
shit.
not.
Just take it.
Yeah, but if I wanted the right calculation, right? If
Yeah.
I calculated the recycle value based on X amount of metal bars and X amount of wood planks, then if I only get wood planks back, my calculations are wrong, right? Then I've been pricing it wrong.
Or the UI is wrong. That's known to have happened.
Yeah, it's craziness. All right, guys. So Bogle actually mentioned DDoS attacks and can't log in and stuff like that. I'm gonna link something in Twitch chat right here.
I have to open Twitch chat.
It's funny. This progression seems to be the same in every game that comes out from like scratch. Every time a new MMO hit
Mm-hmm.
the launch date, it's almost the same thing. It's queuing and crashing and so server overload, and then it's RMTing and it's DDoS and count hacks, and it's almost the same every single time.
Same pattern, right?
I'm starting to think there's an actual mafia or something that's doing only this and waiting for EP3.
Probably. I mean, I think what's different from this one, from my experience at least, is I think Albion, right from the get-go, was a lot more aggressive with their anti-gold selling, anti-RMT policies, at least in the beginning, like as far as what they have set at Black and White. And in light of, that aggressiveness, and that article linked there actually talks about that the gold sellers were actually ransoming Sandbox Entertainment, Sandbox Interactive, SBI, into, because of all the bannings that they've done on gold sellers. I'm just glad they did the bannings. Most launch games, especially launch MMOs, don't even bother with aggressive anti-RMT policies. I'm really glad they did that. What do you guys think of that?
I'm stoked about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a positive thing, right?
Right, because I was hearing, I don't know if it was an interview or if it was Bersilak's presentation, but if I'm not mistaken, Albion is extremely sensitive to things like abuse and botting and whatnot. Also, most likely because it's fairly simple. So they have to be very vigilant and very much on top of this from the beginning. Otherwise, the game just becomes unplayable in like no time.
Yeah, I mean, that is ultimately the problem that they're going to struggle with is what I'm doing right now in game while we chat. I could easily, I'm not like an advanced bot creator or anything. I don't bot in any games, but I have a macro creator on my like auto hotkey, if you're familiar, and you could auto hotkey what I'm doing in game right now.
Yeah, because they're simple mechanics, aren't they?
Right.
I used to know a dude who would record a script of him like upgrading an island, and then just leave it run for 10 hours, and then he just tell people, hey, I can upgrade your islands, and then he just order these, the resources in his inventory properly, and then he'd come back later.
That's crazy, man.
It's possible, but they should be on top of this, right? I mean, if they have any interest in having a somewhat reasonable game experience, getting rid of competition, unfair competition potentially, is something that should be of interest to them, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
true.
I completely agree.
But then, through all, because, there was a lot of days where, especially the Euro time zone guys, just, dude, you're just not logging in today. You're not logging in. I'm US time zone, and I catch it maybe late at night when I can finally log in and like harvest my carrots or my wheat in my personal island, and that's all I could do, and I'd be kicked out again. But what do you guys think of the compensation policies that SBI actually put in. Do you think it was fair? Was that kind of surprising? Were you expecting that at all from a company?
I mean,
You mean the 7 days of premium?
it's 14 now.
Oh, is it? Is it? Oh, great.
I mean, your customers are paying for a service that's supposed to be up and running, right? And then it's not up and running. So what are they paying for then? So I mean, yes, I think it's a good idea to give compensation for that issue.
Also to keep player retention, right? If they didn't do this, there would just be so much more people just going, okay, I can't play this. This is horrible. I'm not even gonna waste my time on it. If you get something for free like this, they're more likely to just push through and tolerate the issues and potentially stay on the other side. So I know that they've already expected to see something like I think Perslac said something like half of the player base actually drop off over the next 2 or 3 months. So getting a few more of those to actually stay, that's good business and it's good service.
What's the fact that 14 days of premium time was given back? Is that fair? Should we get more? Was that kind of too much, or what do you guys think? I think it's a lot, to be honest. Like 14 days is a lot.
I mean, I think maybe it's a little generous, but you know what it did? It guaranteed that I wasn't gonna be like, like for me, I would have probably walked away if they hadn't done some compensation.
Really?
So it
Really?
absolutely worked.
Is it because you were like a high level founder that or does take into account to anything?
No, it just boiled down to for me, the game hasn't yet really engaged me in a meaningful way, and that is not the game's fault necessarily. I mean, as we've established, I'm chopping down trees, right? But I don't have like a huge addiction to the game like I do or did with Eve. I'm trying to stick with did and not do.
I mean, you're not even T4 yet, so.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like I haven't bought into this game the way that I had.
You're missing out on some.
Bought into Eve.
Yeah. For everybody who's not T4 yet, get a guild, get T4, and if you're brave enough, get into the Black Zones as soon as you can, and then you see the real pull of this game coming in, and that's what you should do as soon as you can.
Damn, I'm having flashbacks. This sounds like a
no. That's
just get into your frigate and come to Delve. It's like what?
I mean, that is the best way to play Eve.
Yeah, true. I just want to highlight again, like the ransoming bit from the DDoS. I'm sorry, from the DDoSing and the gold sellers. I've actually I don't ever recall seeing publication on gold sellers actually ransoming a game. So I thought that was pretty unique. Is that from you guys' experience? Have you seen anything like that before?
No, but I think it made perfect sense because the tinfoil that was starting about the fact that it was actually not a DDoS and it was just the service being extremely bad because we had already had server issues very early, right? I think it made perfect sense to just say, well, this is actually not our service breaking. This is not our game doing something below quality. This is actually an attack. And I think it was good to put some sort of documentation out there so the discussion was just no longer a thing. Maybe the actual ransom letter, that's very novel. I've never seen that before. And reading it was a little bit hilarious because, anyways.
So weird.
It's not my first language or something like that, right?
Can anyone actually speak a little bit? Actually, I haven't seen the letter. I've only been seeing articles kind of second, third hand of the event. So can anyone speak of the letter?
It's linked in there, I think.
Is it on the thing?
But it's not.
I found a link, but
I
can't open it.
I couldn't see it in myself either.
It's in the article on the bottom. Yeah. But for me personally, the interesting part were how weirdly it was written in English, and you can clearly see that it's not or apparently not an English native speaker, and that he's like wanting 6 BTC Bitcoin. So that's like what 15,000-20,000 euros.
Yeah,
for,
no,
I don't know.
that's crazy. All right,
And
so
even if it's fake, it's entertaining. So I don't know.
all right, it's Nigerian prince type deal, right? Got it.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Praises. Well, hopefully we'll get past this DDoSing and inability to log in and stuff like that. Because I mean, we're running up on what, week 3, so some of the founders, pack people, some may be dropping off as soon as their 30 days are up. But now that we're given an extra 14 days, so that's been that time frame has been extended.
I mean, as far as I know, they're supposed to have fixes running or testing right now. And I think the other day I read that they are doing patches right now to improve the resistance against DDoS things, but it took like 1 or 2 more downtimes. And I'm not sure if it's implemented yet, but I saw that somewhere. So it's currently been worked on.
Yeah. Have you guys experienced any kind of weird loss of inventory or anything like that? I've been hearing kind of stories here and there of items like that, especially with market players, like market orders being all borked up and stuff.
No.
I have not had that problem.
Oh, you're so lucky. I think there was a guy in one of our discords lost his buy order or something like that. It's like, crazy.
The only thing I know of that people who did some gold trading just close to when servers went down, I think the first 2 weeks or so, they partially lost their orders and caused like them losing thousands of gold. And that was an issue for a while, but I think that's fixed now, question mark.
They lost gold, not silver?
In your Discord, Bogle, that had, because he was building a very large stack or refining a very large
Oh,
stack,
that guy, yeah.
he kind of didn't get his returns. It disconnected him in the middle of it, and it took his resources, and it didn't give him back the product.
Yeah, now that you say it. But I don't know why.
That kind of makes sense, because the whole back and forth, how the servers would respond to a disconnect at that point, kind of makes sense. That I think that would be one of the risks that I would not. I've actually started doing very small stacks because of that. So
Yeah.
Well, I've done always small stacks for a while because the that experience carried over wasn't in it, that fix. So when you did very large stacks of items in the beginning during launch, and you were to like unlock a level basically, then it didn't carry over. So if you refined stuff worth, I don't know, 15,000 fame, but your next level was only like 1,000 fame away, you only got 1 level, and the rest 14,000 just disappeared. But they fixed that now.
Okay, good.
same with the books, right? It didn't.
Yep.
Fill
Oh, the journals?
The next journal, so it would fill one, and then the rest was just wasted.
Oh man, it takes a while to fill those sometimes too.
Yeah, but
Yep.
the whole journal market is just so crazy, in my opinion. It's not started to make sense yet. Then again, I haven't even done any spreadsheets or math on it myself.
I'm afraid to do spreadsheeting simply because of the way the markets are. I'm afraid, man. I'm super afraid.
Well, because the price should be at least similar to a fraction of the return. So let's say that you at least pay for, say, 20% of the return of actually sending out your worker. So if you then add that to the recycle cost, even the tier 2 journal should sell in a realm of like 350, 400 silver at least. But they're just being sold as junk.
What's the NPC price of getting it?
Huh?
What's the NPC price of actually acquiring your first journal, like from your island?
It's each journal is also based on the global discount, but currently it's 500. So the price to acquire the journal is 500, and then you have to add your returns on top for that journal. And for tier 2 and tier 3 journals, you only get, the flat resources because there is no rares yet. And at tier 4, you also start to get 0.1, 2, and 3 returns.
Oh, okay.
But the return of investment is like 2 cycles, and then then it's free, right? So then.
Yeah, but I know a bunch of guys who just die with a bunch of journals on them.
Ugh. Yeah, I mean the price of acquiring a blank one and then selling a full one as of like this past Monday, Tuesday in Carolyn was like it's like a 200% margin. It's crazy.
Yeah,
What
I think
tier?
the interesting thing I haven't seen
3 and 4s.
Yeah, three
Oh,
and
you're
four
talking
are
empty
the ones
ones?
that are selling at kind of nice markups. But I haven't seen the cycle in the biome happening yet, even though you can actually take a huge stack and it's not really that costly to ship it automatically with the harbor master from town to town.
I think the higher ones have higher item values, and I think that's where the cost starts to get in. I have to look at that though.
Well, I'm pretty sure I tried with different tiers, and I'm pretty sure it was flat the same price. I don't know if that's a mistake, but I think it was only like 75 silver or something like that per book.
If that's the case, it's a huge mistake, but I don't think it should. Like, I don't think they would have made that mistake. Well, it's SBI, but
I'm gonna have to go and check it again. But even with just tier 2, just adding an extra cost of 75, it's actually worth it, right? So if you add 75 and it's a journal of an asset that is not necessarily that frequently available in the city that you're hoarding it.
you're talking empty ones or full ones?
Both.
All right, I'll have to do some investigation tonight.
Reverse engineering. Good to go. All right, so we're kind of shift gears here a little bit. So we're about three weeks deep into launch, right? I've been seeing a lot of interesting things in the subreddit and in the forums concerning player services, actually. And the reason I kind of want to hit on this topic is it seems very unique, especially to actually properly implemented sandbox games or open world games, because of the players is kind of wanting to have an edge or being able to do something unique. Do you guys have any experience with any of these player run services in game, or have seen any people kind of advertising or anything like that?
Yes, I do, but I'll let you guys talk first.
All right. So
Looking forward to the safari thing. That's such a nice thing.
He's been super successful with that.
A little bit better and do some, I don't know, meta advertising and stuff like that, because
Yeah.
it's so cool. And I'm definitely gonna go on one of those just for the hell of it. And,
Yeah, actually, let me speak a little bit of that then. So I belong to our guild, which is Naked Traders, and we lead a Discord of basically, think of it as like an expanded willing to sell, willing to buy type Discord, purely trade, but on the services realm. So there are services that are the services that are offered by the guild or slash group ranges from courier services to protection, which actually it's quite sought after. What I've noticed in the last few days, though, is the actual services are starting to be decentralized. And what do I mean by that is people are just they find their way some way somehow through the Discord, and they're like, hey, willing to sell protection service from this hour to this hour, PM me. Or someone asking for, hey, can someone courier this stack of items for me from this city to this city? And it's pretty dynamic how that supply and demand of these various services actually have come up. And the services actually have expanded to not just those types of activities, but also just like bodyguarding types, like general security type stuff, help with player events. There were some folks who needed some assistance with there was like a donkey race of some sort last week, and they needed some bodies or something like that.
A what? A donkey race?
A donkey race, a donkey deathmatch race. It was awesome. It was awesome. Point A to point B on your donkey, naked, go.
And then you had gankers in between?
Maybe. Maybe.
I wish that I'd been part of that.
The donkey race was legit. Donkey race was
I
legit.
just saw Rodin say donkey show, and I said no thanks. That's not
Not my jam. Not my jam. But yeah, I mean, to me, that's super interesting, because a lot of these items, it's almost like there were not necessarily flaws, but things that weren't actually even taken into consideration for the design, and the players are compensating for that using their creativity and cooperating with each other.
Yeah, and of course the whole third party servicing and collateral holding and things like developing things like insurance and whatnot. It's like you're seeing all of these things just rolling out, and it's very much Eve-esque in nature. It's very organic. I'm very impressed at what Bogle has been doing with trying to create the Albion version of the SCC lounge, basically a place for traders of all kinds to just come in and start doing deals and sharing experiences and stuff like that. And then, of course, Dank that's been working on all this other types of third-party services, and then you have things like Iron Bank that was trying to start things like a share-based business. I think it was too early, but that's a long story. And you're just seeing all these meta market and meta economy things just rolling out, and I think it's amazing. And I hope that it keeps up, and I'm hoping that we are soon going to see more video cast shows and podcasts and news sites, because I have no idea what's going on in the bigger Black Zone meta yet.
Yeah. I mean, that's one role I have to self-plug now. I mean, I mean that's one thing we've been trying to fill with the Albion Informer podcast. Well, we try to do like 2 shows a week ish, potentially 3, and we want to give one update of the high level PvP that's going on in the Black Zones, just to keep the gossip up, to keep people informed what's happening in Money Guild and in Oops Alliance, or what's happening with Nilfgaard or the Zorn Alliance, like those big players who just dare to fork out a bunch of 7-3 sets and smack their heads against each other. And then we do another show that's similar to your show, potentially, where we just talk about the bigger picture, like what's impacting your game style, and or rather what's how you play against the game itself, like somewhat not PvE, but game against you, more or less, influenced with economic stuff as well. And then interviews as well, which I think is one of the coolest things you can do. Interview people who are very inside of the community, guild leaders or people who, always hang out on the forums and claim they're number one for some reason.
Of course.
I was very impressed with the one you did with the Iron Bank incident. It's the only one I've actually gotten around to listening to, and I'm trying to work my way through the entire list of your podcasts, but haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah, that's really
I'm
good.
just confused because clearly I'm number 1 in the game with my not in tier 4 yet.
I mean,
if it's your game and if you think you are number 1, that's fine. You can play the game like you want, right?
Yeah.
You can be the Gevlin Goblin of Albion.
Oh my god! I don't want to be the Gevlin Goblin of anyone.
Of anything.
Just claim that you've won. You won Eve. You beat goons, and now you're going back to World of Warcraft.
Right. That's actually a good point, though, Bogle. As far as the media stuff, I mean, granted, Albion as a playable game actually has been around for what, 2+ years now, with all the betas and all that.
I think I signed up on the forums in 2013.
Oh wow! Okay.
Alphas happened like. Firstly, it was just guild alphas, but shortly after, so 2014. Yeah, but that's only like 3 weeks, 4 weeks tests, and then the 24/7 beta, final beta, third beta, I don't know, is running for like a year or so.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the media piece, I don't. Besides Albion Informer, to be honest, I can't recall of any long-standing media platform out there that actually consistently puts out material. Minus, of course, kind of like your YouTube people, you know what I mean, that just make a video on like guides and stuff like that. I don't think they're quite at the same league, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of regular streamers and the official Albion stream as well. I think they've been quiet in the last few days, but I know they want to do a regular highlight of high tier GVG action. So it's the official Albion Twitch stream. I'm not exactly sure on their schedule right now, but they have dev tools, and because it's the official one, they can just hop between the GVGs and spectate them, and that's very interesting for a special crowd. But other shows like this one, I'm happy you guys come up, and I'm happy you guys want to talk about Albion, because it's a fun game. It's worth talking about.
It is. It really, really is.
And you have a little bit of a chance of laughing at us, because if I'm not mistaken, the last week or two, I think the Eve groups have basically been whelping and losing a lot and being
Really?
steamrolled.
Oh yeah,
by the old
they're bad. They're super bad.
Tell me about it more, please.
They're super
It's
bad.
funny because they've just been failing so hard and being beaten, and it's the old Albion crew that's basically ruling all the meta at the moment.
They have, as you said it, they have 3 years of experience, right? So you have to give them a little bit of credit. I know this is a Eve crowd, and I know this is an Eve show, and I know you guys tend to be full of yourselves because we did this for 15 years now, but it's all right. It's all right. Like, people will learn fast enough, and then it's going to be an equal level playing field.
Yeah.
Especially once
Well, I gotta poke my head in here. Yeah, we're really behind you guys. You guys played beta for a long time.
Yeah, but if you have any questions, if anybody has any questions, you can just ask me. I'm happy to share the knowledge with those who want to ask.
Can you explain? On your islands, there's a repair feature. When does that kick in, and under what circumstances? And is it only Black Zone relevant, or the whole thing with attackable? What's that about? Because I've been looking at it thinking, what do I need to stock up on for repairs?
If you have stuff on your personal island, it doesn't go bad. Like, it doesn't deteriorate. English.
Yeah,
so that is a feature that's for, I think, plots and building plots only. So Black Zone plots and city plots. And what that does is buildings take damage, and you need to put in, I think, stone to repair them or to keep them functioning. But that is very new. I think that only made it in, I think, a few months ago. So it's a system where they want to have buildings take damage over time.
I was just very interested in it because, again, it's one of those counters to dead assets. So no floating assets in space.
But I think the only exception is your private island, which is, I think, game design wise, is a thing that you're not supposed to be able to lose. It's like long-term progress. And of course, you don't have the resource refining bonus, and you don't have the crafting bonuses and whatnot. But for that one guy who just wants his tier 4 whatever crafting station, that's fine. You can give him that for forever for free, I think. That's no problem.
And he still got his overheads on food costs and stuff like that. So that's still a limiting factor, right?
But it doesn't break if you log out for a month or 5 or a year, which stuff in the Black Zone does. Like, if you don't tend to that stuff, then it goes boom.
And if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, even if you're not premium, you still retain everything assets wise and the investment that you have in your personal island. It doesn't.
Yes.
You don't need to actually be premium. So if you have your premium for 3 months and you've been grinding away and building up your island, you actually can play in a limited state and still have advantage of all that.
Yes. Correct. You get, like, if you don't have premium, you have all those features, like less fame, less return of resources. If you harvest stuff, you get less per tick and so on. But you can still play the game. If you bought the game once, you still have access. But way worse than if you had premium.
Yeah, but like, just comparing to something like you were talking before we went live about things like farming carrots, right? if you are not premium and you have a fully expanded island, you're still going to get the returns potentially for something like farming, because there's a current profit. If you're buying your seeds from the market, there's still a profit, right? So that kind of income will not go away, even though you're not premium anymore. So you might actually be able to make up for it and earn enough to pay for your premium with your
In
income
theory.
from your island, right?
In theory, yes. In practice, you get, what, 100% bonus on farming returns? So that's big. Yes. Possible in theory. In practice, a lot of hard work. And people would rather, I think, fork out like $5 to pay for that.
Oh yeah. And I'm pretty sure that you can grind for the premium elsewhere fairly easily, right? Even if you're not premium, it doesn't take that long to earn the silver for premium.
Yeah, it depends on how high the silver price goes, right? Because your premium is what, 2,500 gold for 30 days on the lowest level, and right now the silver is 200. What did you say earlier? 20 something. So
It's 525,000 silver or something, I think the
yeah,
conversion is.
that's still a I don't know. Depending on what you do without premium, it's not insignificant, I would say.
No, but if you have a month,
Yeah.
even if you're just grinding, say, running out and doing, say, low-level chests at 2,000 to 4,000, right?
Yeah.
You still only have to do between 100 and 250 of those, and you're home free.
Yeah, but dude,
It's
possible.
boring
It's
as fuck,
possible.
but
It's
possible,
super
right?
inefficient, and no, everybody should just pay $5. But yeah,
Just pay it. Just pay it. Crazy.
I think you don't underestimate the desire of Eve players to play without spending $5.
To play for free.
Yeah, playing for free is basically my goal in any game.
Shit.
yeah. I mean, I bought into the game once, and I have that access, and I think my main has like over a year already of premium.
Oh wow.
But yeah,
Yeah,
it's
we bought
possible.
the big pack as well, so we also have a year.
Yeah.
That's good. All right, let me take this segue into actually. Hopefully, Bogle can actually kind of speak to this a little bit. I just want to touch on the Iron Bank episode. That's definitely been a great buzz item this week. But I'm really curious, not so much into the fine details. As me personally, I think it would be absolutely unfair for me to actually make a comment on the event since I know no one from either side of the conversation there. But I kind of just want to get you guys' take on that whole event. Not so much as a like less of a drama piece, but more of like a customer relations type of angle. Like, did the right things happen because of that event, or were certain things kind of missed? And how is that going to affect the game moving forward, you think? If you can give us a kind of a quick synopsis, Bogle, if you don't mind.
Sure. I mean, so basically what happened is there's this one group or guild that was called the Iron Bank, and they, through a shareholder system, through like combining 250 people's founders' money, were able to acquire plots in Carleon and recoup that investment fairly quickly, over I think 2 weeks or so. And then once the auctions for those plots came to be, they were faced with a super high bid. And after looking into the bidder, they realized that the character name of that bidder was equal to a Chinese gold selling website. And then they contacted SBI and said, "Hey, we think there's something fishy here. Can you check that?" And then it took them quite a while until they firstly got a response, but also until they were offered a solution. And initially they were offered, all right, we give you some money back, and we just, leave it be. And then that's more or less what happened. The issue is, though, that when you look at this in more detail, the thing people are, or me personally as well, are a bit angry about or worried about is not that they reimbursed them, or did they get their money, or did they not get their money, or did they refuse the money, whatever. It's not about the money. It's about telling the developer of a game, hey, we found potentially a way where your game is unfair to players, or in a way making players pay inflated silver prices for items because of illegal activity, so gold sellers. So for the plot example, that is then they had to pay, I think, 20 million more silver than they expected they should pay, or maybe 30. And that money was put in by somebody using stolen credit cards to buy gold and then putting that on that plot. And at first, the response from SBI was like, okay, we banned the account. Thanks.
And that's where it should have stopped, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us will agree that it's a slippery slope to start getting too involved in what could be classified as the player meta economy. And the fact that the Iron Bank got burned on something like inflated prices from gold sellers, it's really on their own dime. It's not necessarily something that SBI, at least not on the long term, can be responsible for. They are responsible for, of course, cleaning out when there's gold sellers and abuse of their system. But having some sort of reimbursement and stuff like that, it's going to be a pain for them to maintain that.
Right. It's potentially a pain for them, but that's not, I think, the problem of the issue. It's how they dealt with the situation, which is they saw it happening, say, okay, instead of 20 million, you have to pay 15 million for your plot now. Or I think instead of, what was it, 12, you have to pay 35 something. Anyhow, the 20 million difference is then potentially unbeknownst to the player to be paid out of their own pockets. And I'm sure a lot of players will just say, oh shit, I made a mistake. Oh, I'll just pay $100 and make this go away. Pay $100 for something that occurred because somebody else used credit card fraud and you don't know about it.
Oh yeah, of course. My argument
I have a pretty strong
that,
opinion on this one.
Yeah, but my argument is that reimbursing someone that's doing something on a grand scale, right? Because they're doing it in a group that's working on shares and with a lot of gold, right? And they then say, well, we've lost a lot because of this inflated price, and because we've lost a lot, we should have reimbursement. What about all the smaller entities or smaller groups or individuals that have also inadvertently been victims of an inflated price, regardless of what item or asset it is that they're buying? Should they then be reimbursed as well? Then you're in this whole spiral of support demand that's just not viable. And you can't say that, well, because it's a big scale project like Iron Bank, then it's more important, because actually then they're just servicing the bigger players in the game. That's equivalent to just favoring the big groups and the big money.
While I do agree with you that if it was normal player action, and if you were to combat against a random credit card warrior, that was just to say, whatever, $2,000, I don't care, and it's fine. That's part of the game. That's a harsh reality you have to accept, that somebody can just pay $2,000, $5,000 and just take the plot from you. But as soon as you have a situation where it's confirmed that the person who bid against you was banned for credit card fraud, then it translates into a direct loss for you, right?
Okay, but then when I bought my horse for 500 silver instead of 300 silver, let's say, and the reason that it's 500 silver is because somebody is defrauding credit cards and then using that to prop up the price of horses.
Hmm.
Do you fix that for me and for everybody else who bought a horse at an inflated price?
Well, that's in theory. I, as a player, expect my game to be somewhat safe. Like, I expect the company
So-
who makes my game to be responsible for protecting me as, if possible, from fraud.
But that's the problem, right? That's
So
I
I
think,
don't expect that.
Death, can I just butt in? I know you are just as passionate as me on this. It's a sandbox game. This safety is off. That's really, I think, the argument, at least from an EVE player perspective, that you cannot expect a sandbox to have those safeguards, because you cannot tell the difference between when someone like DTB here in chat is, say, cornering a specific market and buying up everything and doing that specifically to raise the price to like 2 or 3 times.
No. I
But
totally
my point
agree
is, you
with
can't
that.
tell where the money came from.
But
Of
in
course,
that case,
it can be illegal money, but it could just as well be a market-based abuse, right?
I totally agree with you that if this is normal money, quote unquote, then somebody jacking up the price on whatever you have in your economy is totally fine. That's game mechanics, that's working as intended. But in a chain of events where you have a inflated price and you know that the person who did that is banned for that, and all his money is removed in theory from the system, and they don't reduce the price of that bid, even though the money was removed from the system or that player was banned, and then they charge you a higher price anyway. That's, I think,
that's because
that's
the
a
money
problem.
has been converted into, say, an actual asset in the game, right? And
But then, as a game developer, you're willingly accepting inflated asset prices because people are defrauding money and pumping that into your economy. And at that point, it feels like they're complicit to this.
Yeah, I'm just not sure that. Okay, there is of course the stolen accounts or stolen credit cards. That's a whole different issue. But if you're just talking about things like traditional sweatshopping and gold selling and stuff like that, fundamentally, they have not been manipulating the economy. They've been manipulating people and getting assets in the game. But the majority of those assets are legitimate assets. So it's just a distribution that's illegitimate, and the way that it's then being utilized. So I'm just questioning whether did they make this money appear in the system through some magic means? If not, it's part of the ecosystem, and it's up to the players like Iron Bank and similar to do their own due diligence, because they cannot expect to be compensated by the developers.
So somebody steals a credit card. Somebody pays $100 to get 20,000 gold. That 20,000 gold is then used to do stuff. After a while, it's discovered, and that 20,000 gold is removed from the economy, right? Or
yeah, but you can't retroactively fix it. You can't fix prices if they've been already used to trade something, to manipulate a market, to corner something, to hike up a price for something, to add returns, to create market bots, to create bots running around in the environment that all need gathering gear. All of that has already entered the economy. You can't really retroactively pull that back out, because then you're trying to unravel a carpet that's just now too big. At least that's my experience from EVE sandbox games wise. You can't roll back a price change just because someone has been manipulating something.
So the one thing I will say that I would have been happier with, which I think maybe would have been a middle ground that you might agree with here, is so we're specifically talking about an issue with the auctioning of plots, and I would have been fine to see the auction rerun with all costs of bidding or whatever. I haven't bid on an auction for a plot yet, so I don't know if there's a fee for bidding, but I would have been fine with them basically just rerunning the auction.
Yeah, rolling it all back for everyone and rerunning it from scratch.
Yeah, I mean, is one of the problems inherently that it's done through an auction system?
Yes.
What could be a better solution then?
all of the auctions come due at one time, right?
Yes.
So that's the issue.
I think that's the key, right? It's the auction system that's really a flawed way of handling this, and it should really be maybe changed into a player-to-player based trade system instead, because I think that would be a lot more stable and something that was easier to manage also from the developer side. So you should be able to sell your plots directly, and that should be the only trade. So you should also be able to kind of corner it if you have the assets to try and do so, and then the added costs in maintenance and overheads and competition and all that would just enter the economy. I think an auction system based on NPC is wrong.
Again, I totally agree with you if we're talking about quote unquote legitimate money, right? Which
But
players
once the
can.
silver's in the system, it's legit. Even if the gold wasn't legit, the silver is legit.
No, but because it gets removed, right? Like, as far as I understand, people who buy or acquire fraudulent currency, get banned, and at that point, that part of the silver is removed, so to say,
Isn't
from
it
the
only the
economy.
gold that's removed?
I think, I don't know, but I
Well, there's
assume some part of the silver goes out of the economy because it's frozen with the account or deleted or whatever. But in a situation where you have that illegal money that is then frozen, jacking up prices and people having to pay 20,000 gold more or 200,000 gold more for stuff, instead of a situation where that price difference wouldn't have occurred, they are at a loss. And then I expect my game developer to protect me as much as possible for fraudulent activity. And if my account gets hacked, I expect my game developer to like say, all right, it's probably your fault, but because of good business model, we just restore it, right? That's
Interesting.
course.
We have fundamentally different views on the responsibilities of the game developer.
Well, when it comes to account responsibility, that is the game developer. I totally agree with Bogle on that one, but I do not.
Oh, I
feel
don't.
That on
Really, Dev? Really? Can you
Yeah,
explain that
no.
though?
Sure. In Eve, let's say, because or here, just in Albion, let's say I have 1,000 T8 or whatever um, chest plates, and somebody hacks my account and sells all of those, and so now there's 1,000 T8 chest plates that I had stored that are now distributed to other people, right? And then I get my account restored. Well, now that's magically 1,000 more T8 chest plates in the economy than would have existed. So I don't think that I think getting my account back in terms of having my character and things that can't be traded off to other characters is great, but anything that enters the marketplace, even if it was a hacker taking it away from me illegitimately, I think that's on me.
no.
That's tough, man.
That's how it
Um,
works in Eve.
so
By
so in terms of the auction and the whole Iron Bank thing, I don't agree with reimbursements, but I do think that some kind of policy by SI should be in place in which if someone gets permanently banned and they own a plot, some sort of plot ownership transfer occurs to the other party. But in terms of Iron Bank, they bid what they did, and in terms of that, I don't really see like if they decided the value of this plot was 100 million, that's on them, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, but again, because it's an auction and because it's NPC based, it's so open to, well, I'd call it abuse. Again, not because this is an Eve show, because it is Albion, but one of the features that we had in Eve a while back was based on crafting, where you could bid on an auction on these teams that could then boost your crafting. And it just broke the entire system. It was so abusable, and players gamed it to death. And I think introducing anything that's based on auction like that, that's NPC based, is a mistake for a sandbox, and it should definitely be redesigned and maybe removed, because you cannot balance this and you cannot avoid players gaming it. Having it
Uh,
in the hands of PvP market wise is a lot safer in the long
a-
run.
Actually, in terms of the auction, yeah, I agree. The auction design is kind of flawed in this game. I actually would want to see like a sealed second price auction that's blind. So you have one bid and you only have one bid. And the person who wins pays the second highest bid. That would be interesting. It'd probably be more value based than it is now.
I think technically the only kind of auction that I could see makes sense. Again, this could be a long discussion, but I think the most effective way of doing it would be a Dutch auction. So it starts crazy high, and then it just ticks down, and then it's just a matter of who actually snipes it. And then if it gets taken at the extremely high price, that just means that next month you're gonna have to put it higher.
Yeah, well, that's another like the Dutch auction is also a pretty good one, but this whole first price auction that goes on in a lot of games, I think, is not a good way to do any kind of one time or like timed kind of content, because it doesn't really get to the value of the object. It's just who has the bigger uh, fraudulent money base or just money in general. Like it has no bearing on the actual value of the plot itself, which is
It's funny. In theory, the highest for that a plot can go for is 10 million silver right now. They upped it from 1 million.
okay.
So you have to rely on out of system trading anyways. But my point is that regardless of how flawed a game design might be, and I think I agree with you that the current auction design for plots is bad. And I know that Angry Buddha, the guy who's partly in charge of this, wrote a suggestion on the forums, and it to me it looks too complex. But the point I'm trying to make is that when I play a game and I get a feeling that something's fishy, I have a negative game experience, right? And I get a feeling that something might be fishy if the developer tells me, all right, you might have inflated assets in your game, but we like you're bad, your problem, and that's not something I'm happy with. Where I have the constant fear in my head that the price I pay for items is not the price it should be, and this is where it because of illegal activity, right? And this is where it crosses a line for me personally. I expect my game to be somewhat secure from real life fraud. Like all this RP about scamming people and whatnot, that's okay, that's fine, that's the game. But as soon as it goes from game scamming people to crossing the border of all right, real life scamming, that's where I personally draw a line.
But they're inextricably linked though, aren't they?
Hmm?
They're going to be linked in open world scenarios, I think.
Yes, and that's a super big problem for gaming, like in the grand scheme of things. It's not just about the Albion thing. It's whether you are as a company, as a game company, have a means to tell your players, hey, we're doing everything we can to remove fraudulent currency from the system, and we're doing everything we can to have it not affect your game experience. But in this specific case, it did affect game experience. It did potentially cause real life money loss to players because they had to pay 200,000 gold more for stuff. And the developer just says, sorry, if something like this happens again, we can't reimburse you again, meaning they are accepting this circumstance. And that's not what they possibly can or want to do business wise. That just doesn't make sense for me.
Yeah. All right.
Can I ask Bogle a small question? Have you
Sure.
had eyes on the whole number crunching behind these trades and behind the valuation of plots and stuff like that? Because
Partially, yes.
I've been looking at some of it, and I can't really see how they can defend a valuation in the 5 or 10 million for a plot unless something is being, I don't know, abused or it's got some sort of scammy nature. I can see in the land rush economy, people might be face rolly and not really care about it and not notice that there's a 999% fee on something and then accidentally losing a lot of money. But from a fundamental income level, when it's in a competition range like the 15%, and now it's in the 8 and 7, does that really make up for that investment on a long run? What's the return of investment on say a 5 million plot? Because you need to sell a lot of activity for that to be made up, right?
You're talking specifically about the Iron Bank internal projections they had, right? And I don't know. I don't know how they got to that point, valuing their plots at whatever they ended up with. I think they ended up trying to sell a plot for 12.5 mil at the point of auction, which is now a week ago, per plot. But guilds didn't want them. Well, they wanted them, but they said we don't have the money. But in the very beginning, in a land rush release scenario, based on my experience, it is possible to make that kind of money initially. If that is long term, like for the next month, I know plots are insanely profitable, but I couldn't speak exactly to whether or not 5 to 15, whatever, is a good number. What I do know is that central plots in Carleon went for between 3 and 5 to 10 million silver, depending on the location.
Yeah, it's just I'm just trying to, just on the top of my head, just trying to crunch how many sales or how many services you have to actually utilize on a plot like that. And I know, of course, people's convenience, and then they're lazy and they don't want to run to the 2% cheaper plot a little bit further away. But still, once they start saying, okay, that is actually me running for 30 seconds or a minute longer, saving this much silver, maybe I should, and not go for convenience. I don't see those millions coming in. I can see the return on.
It's possible. It's
it,
possible.
it would take a long time. You're not going to make it in 2 or 3 months.
Hey, Caleb, you got to realize, like in Limhurst, a lot of the plots aren't high enough level to do level 6 or 7. So
Yeah.
those don't count when you count what you're using them for.
Yes, the fee is based on the item value, right? And the higher level items, tier 6, tier 7, tier 8, they have insanely high item values. And those things, they, like, if you craft one item, you're going upwards of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,000 silver per craft easily at, I don't know, 10%.
Not only that, but the markup by the owner of the building is going to be higher for a higher tier building.
Yeah.
So,
and also keep in mind the vanity of, hey, I own this plot in Carleon.
Yeah, but you still have to stay below the level where people can do it themselves or network themselves to access to a tier 6 or tier 7.
Based on my game experience and based on the numbers the other plots gave, 5 million is easy per plot.
Really? Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's nuts, man.
And then if you have this one case where you have a central plot and it's a 4 plot, so you have basically 4 building spaces on one plot, you have 4 times the evaluation for that. Plots are crazy, man. Like, and it has always been a sick money maker in the past, and in a game economy right now where you don't have all the unlocks yet, and you have certain buildings that have, that more or less can monopolize a certain niche of the market, every single person in Carleon is going to that plot.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
That's millions on millions and millions in silver. And now, I mean, right now they face the competition problem where they have to, the only way you can do competition right now is lower your price. And then at some point you have too much use of the building, which then kicks in the what's the mechanic called? Where you can't use it. Not durability, but capacity.
Capacity, yeah.
Yeah. And so some buildings potentially are out of capacity soon. And then there's some kind of balance long term where you have X amount of fees, and that is just high enough so you don't max out the capacity.
Let me redirect this conversation because we will literally go on hours in here. So kind of just bring everything back. So we've established, I think, almost to a consensus that maybe the auction system is a bit flawed in its current iteration. Could use some work. Hopefully, Sandbox Interactive actually looks into that. I'm not sure how viable that is in their development cadence or in their overall plan. I think we've established that there's definitely different views as far as the responsibilities of not just the players but also the developers. You know what's expected of each other as far as in these types of interactions. And I think we'll forever have not a consensus on how that's going to happen. But that's normal. My next question, though, and I think this is something that really interests me because it's very meta. I think. So this incident has really garnered a lot of attention to Albion. I'm not, there's out of game, out of like a general publications for video games have actually covered it, things like that. Reddit blew up. There's a lot of eyes on the game right now. Was this good or bad publicity? You think, guys? As far as long-term viability of the game.
Of course, I think it's a good thing, right? Because this is equivalent to the big
All
scam.
publicity is good publicity.
Yeah, there's that.
It's equivalent to the big scams and the big heists and stuff like that in Eve. It's a good story. It's exciting. It shows that these things are possible in this game, and this game is in flux and in development, and there's exciting times. It's frontier country. So definitely, this is good news. If 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 Sandbox then doesn't really iterate on it and doesn't actually fix things in a good way, then the story becomes very sour and bad. But that's further down the road, so definitely not relevant right now.
I tend to agree. If SBI learned a lesson from this, and if SBI finds a way to communicate to the people that, hey, look, if we can clearly identify fraudulent activity and prevent monetary loss for our players by that, and if we have some kind of policy where we reimburse people for credit card fraud, essentially, that's no problem. If they, on the other hand, say, well, we just say nothing, or we accept that, and players never get an answer to this huge problem. I think that goes beyond SBI as a game company. I think that's a current problem in gaming. If players can somehow find a way to be assured that the game they play is safe, quote unquote, and that they don't have to combat with illegal activity, then it's totally fine. But I don't want to hop on this train where people say, oh, SBI, learn your lessons.
Look, all I'm saying is Iron Bank didn't experience credit card fraud. They experienced an issue with money that was purchased, but they don't even own that money. Nobody owns any of the assets in game except Sandbox.
Okay, sure. But why, if out of nowhere this comes, right? So basically you're saying this is just, it comes from nowhere and it shouldn't be in the game somewhere, right?
But it doesn't come from nowhere. Somebody generated that silver and put it on the gold market.
It was generated, but it's not supposed to have been generated, right?
No. The gold came from nowhere. The silver, however, was generated.
What's the difference?
Fairly.
Well, you can freely exchange between gold and silver. There's no issue.
Yeah.
Let me if I can make a quick comment on that, on what.
Not exactly right. The silver is coming from faucets in the game, right? Now,
yes.
I haven't really looked in detail in the faucet and Sync's design of the game, but if I'm not mistaken, I think what Death is trying to say is that the silver is legit. It came from legit faucets in the game. The fact that it was then traded by players from gold because some players wanted to put that silver into gold, that's really a force majeure thing. It's not something that has to do with out-of-game fraud or RMT and stuff like that. It's similar to the Plex and ISK trade in Eve, the ISK still needs to come from a legit faucet. It's not illegal. The fact that someone has stolen a card and bought a lot of Plex and then uses that to sell to those players doesn't make that money illegal or dirty.
Yeah. If I can just make an anecdotal reference, actually, just piggybacking off of Deathmorn right here, as far as, that's an investment group and things like that. Like, the biggest, I guess, analogy I can make for the experience of Iron Bank the Guild into what they did was, at least in Eve, I managed well over 100 billion ISK worth of investments on my own. That's the equivalent of a bit over $2,000. Like, I did that. I worked like a dog for my investors. I worked like a fucking dog for my investors. And I managed that for months. But one of the things that I kind of tend to harp on with folks that are in the service meta is if you mess up, you gotta suck it up. You have to suck it up.
They didn't mess up.
Yeah, they did. They overbid.
Yeah, they overbid.
No,
they don't need the plots.
Well, they wanted the plot, and according to them,
but-
like the money they spent on that plot, based on their own projections, would still have made a profit, right?
So they have the
that-
plots, right? So, but were they not happy with the plots that they acquired then?
No, they are totally happy with. In theory, they are okay with that. It's like they're not exactly happy with the outcome, but they can live with it. It's not breaking the bank. They had 1.2 million gold, I think.
Okay, I may have to retract my point there because I guess I misunderstood when during that auction whether they actually were happy with the result of acquiring or not acquiring the plots.
It's about keeping the plots, right? They have, in theory, 9 plots total, and they wanted to keep them, so they bid and to keep them, and they managed to do all of that. And if they told me if they do the math, they come out on top, like in a profit, anyways. The reason why they're unhappy is instead of the 20 million they should have had to pay for that plot based on market price, they suddenly were faced with a 40 million situation that wasn't supposed to be in the game.
But couldn't a response then have been just simply, all right, I'm out of the bid?
Yeah, the response should have been, okay, we saw this is not supposed to be here. We checked the logs, we removed the bid, and you're paying market prices for this situation. But what the devs did is like, yeah, we looked at this. We don't really have the logs. Let's look at the math.
The logs show nothing.
Also, we offer, based on our initial estimation, we give you what ended up being, or we offer you half of the money that would have been worth it. And so they were just totally like, did you even look? Do you not have the logs for this?
That's the scary part, though, isn't it? I don't think SBI has the ability to QA this.
No, I think you're right. There's a lot of things that they do not have oversight on yet, and that's really hurting the game already.
Yeah, like on top of no quality of life features for big guilds, like I don't even want to go into this, but
I hear you, man.
On top of that, after 4 years of development, they are telling somebody who potentially just lost like 200,000 gold, sorry, we have issues with our logs and it may take us a month to investigate? Really?
That means they don't have the tools. They have to make the tools still. They just have the raw info, right? They just can't.
Yeah.
They can't make sense of it.
Yeah.
I think that was my argument against Iron Bank. I think they were in a land rush economy doing something share based. This is huge high risk territory, right?
Super high risk.
I don't understand why you would make something that complicated, that risky, so early when the economy is so immature. You don't know what's happening. You don't know who your competitors are. Of course, they might have known a lot of these things, but I'm just saying that due diligence-wise, that's where they should have said, okay, this is definitely not something we're going to touch.
I would tend to give those players some credit. Like, I know most of them were very early alpha players who were on the top like decision-making process there. So I do give them some credit to be able to assess that risk somewhat.
But they didn't count on the thing about the criminal elements, right?
Yeah,
That's
'cause
really what my argument, that when you're doing something when the servers are live, it's a totally different ecosystem. It's a totally different economy. You have to take into account things like RMT, things like criminal activity.
do you have to take that into account?
Yes, you have to.
Because
You absolutely have
it's in
to.
all MMOs, even in World of Warcraft, this is an issue. If you do not take that into account when you're doing your due diligence, if you're basing this on being a beta game, you can't do that when you're in the wild. It's not the same thing.
Well, I guess here's where the opinions differ then. I mean, I
have a question
expect
for
to
you,
be.
Bogle.
Yeah, sure.
Well, like, how is SBI supposed to determine a proper reimbursement? I mean, we're going off Iron Bank, and they
Yeah.
have their numbers, but
Mhm.
I mean, who's to say that another player, seeing the high bids, they didn't bid, but what if they wanted to bid over what SBI values
Then
it?
you have a totally different situation. Then
No,
you
no,
have.
no, no, no. But I mean, what if the fraudulent bidding war actually didn't happen? But so SBI bid what they did, but then another player comes in and says, "Oh, that's a fair price. I want to overbid that," and then they get into another bidding war, and the same result happens. But so
But that didn't
it,
happen.
no, no, no. But if it did, like if it did, and
If it did, and somebody else did that through normal game playing means, then I'm totally fine with that. That's no problem. That's somebody
But,
else
So
saying.
but
that's
I'm just saying this reimbursement issue, it might
Yeah.
not even have come up because if this bidding war didn't happen, but another bidding war did happen,
Mhm.
who's to say what the actual value of the plot is? And that's the whole reason why reimbursement is a slippery issue on these things.
It's
Also,
slippery.
because you don't know
Yeah.
when is it the fault of the developer for not policing properly. When is it because there is some sort of force majeure? There's just too many RMTers. It's too difficult to keep track of everything and to be on top of it all the time. In a proper sandbox economy like this, they need to have a non-reimbursement policy in place, because otherwise they are going to end up spending so much time, so much money on trying to track these things down. The fact that I heard from this story that they are actually going to put their internal affairs thing and they're going to try to look at this and they might come back with an answer in a month, that's development time that I have paid for actual development, not for policing.
I mean, in this specific situation, it was so weird that it's obvious. Like you have a character name named after a Chinese gold selling site. I'm not going to name him, but the character name says something.com, right? And then
Yeah,
that
and
one character bids on a plot for an exact amount of silver, and there's no other bids. And you basically, this is very easy to investigate. You say, okay, the difference here is 200k gold, basically, and then
yeah,
you
which
can
is
say,
why it should have been just entirely rolled back, all of it. You
yes,
get your money, you
that's what
get
should
your
have
money,
happened.
everything starts over, rebid. That's the only thing police-wise that
I agree.
the
I agree.
sandbox can support. You can't do anything else. If you start trying to nitpick of who's going to get what, and you have to restart it, it's equivalent to a rollback. There is no other solution in cases like this. It's the same with tracing down illegal money and just removing all of it, regardless of where it is in the system.
Yeah, but then the developer being so amateurish and saying, "Oh, we have a problem with our internal systems and we can't really do it," and to please you, we offer you like half of
Yeah, it
your
doesn't help.
transactions. It's so
it was a
I don't
bad
know.
solution.
It really
Like,
was. It really was.
I think we can all agree that the solution that SBI came up with was a poor
It's very
solution,
poor. Very
even
poor.
if we disagree on what the correct one was.
Yeah, that's true. If I can, I think we're just about an hour and a half point right here. I just have one more question for the group. Just kind of rounded out, and this is definitely for our more market-minded folks. I'm not too keen on this question, but it kind of just came to me when I was making these show notes. Is the actual mechanic of the gold to silver conversions, is that RMT friendly? Is that one of the main points of contention if SBI is to actually address the RMT and gold selling meta as the game progresses?
It looks to me as if it's too easy. It looks definitely too RMT friendly. I haven't gotten any comment from people like Noisy Gamer, but I'm sure that this is like hugely RNG friendly, and the fact that the game has the appeal that it does, and it's bot friendly as well. They have a lot of things in their future that they really need to fix, because right now it's a very iffy place.
I don't see a problem with the gold to silver conversion personally, but I don't see it as fundamentally any different from the, say, Plex to ISK conversion.
Oh, there's a big difference though, man. This the Plex to ISK is absolutely free market. This isn't free market.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Would it be better? Will that actually be a balance point if the gold to silver conversion was just let loose in the wild the way Plex is and Eve?
Well,
Yeah, I would certainly prefer that.
Can you explain that more? Because I don't really understand it. You have your fixed amount of gold that you can buy for real life money, and the exchange value is fluctuating. So, can you explain?
It's the fact that the bidding thing, the market for gold and silver is kind of obfuscated. It's not player controlled. It's not player bids that you can see in the same way that you can active in-game market. So we don't know if, say, Sandbox is actually generating silver deliberately to
Right.
basically control the price of conversion, which is both a good thing and a bad thing, right? Because it's good because it means that they can actually control for players how expensive gold is to actually, say, get your account premiumed. But it's really bad that you don't have the oversight and you don't have the tools, you don't have the APIs. It's not really a proper market yet, and I'm hoping that with the coming market UI, and I'm hoping that they are considering doing a proper API so we get the player oversight, because trusting that everything is just fine and then they come out and say the logs show nothing, that's really iffy, and it's not really a good and proper way of doing sandbox economy.
I guess I have to make one correction. They said we have logs, but it's bad logs and it takes too long. So there is logs. So
they're effectively nothing.
yeah.
Right. It just leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
This is really bad, man. When you hear that from devs, like, oh, we see nothing. Like, oh, really, guys? It's your game.
Again, they see something, but I think they just wanted to get them to shut up and be like, all right, like, sorry. And then they didn't have a policy in place before, and they had to come up with something, and then they made some statements that were partially bad and contradictory, and at that point you just have to do a cleanup and say, all right, we looked at this again, this is our policy for the future, this is what we learned, this is how we deal with this in the future, A, B, C, D, and this is how we address this. But not the current situation where you have a bunch of random statements on Reddit or in leaked stuff on Pastebin. I guess you can give them a few weeks, but no longer, to make a proper response of how they want to deal with this kind of situation.
I think opening up the silver to gold conversion market in a proper way, it would give them the benefit that you have in Eve, where if anything iffy is going on with the Plex to ISK conversion thing, really, if suddenly there's a huge volume of Plex coming into the market, or suddenly a lot of Plex is being bought off the market, all of this is noticed instantly by the player base, because the whole market is having that much oversight that it's being reported in the news, it's being written about on Reddit like 5 minutes after someone puts something up. All these things are basically the players taking over control that saves the developers a lot of time on security.
I just hope for some consistency. If they decide on a policy, do it now and get it done with.
Yeah, it's true.
I guess this is the lesson then here. Like, this is something that happened. You realize, oh, this shouldn't have happened. What kind of policy should we have in place? Oh, we don't have a policy. Let's make one.
Yep. I think my last bit, guys, is so is, like, me personally, like, I think I am hoping at least eventually that Albion will be free to play, free to try, and then the gold to silver thing stays around. It just feels really weird to actually have, at launch, to still require, like, the founder to get in. That's super shady to me, but that's just me though. I hope it wasn't. I wish it wasn't like that. I wish it was actually free to enter, but
it did feel a little weird to buy into a veteran pack.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
At
but
launch.
I'm a rookie.
Regarding the the problem they have if they allow free to play is that you just get tons more gold spam seller like gold spammers, and they want to raise the barrier of entry to basically mitigating spam. I think. I have heard that they are looking at a system where you can only interact with the gold market if you have a certain progress. So if you have, I don't know, tier 4 or something, tier 3 unlocked or so, for future accounts. I think that's
Gotcha.
something they are considering right now. But it's like a patch or two away.
Yeah, it just
Yeah,
feels really
that's
weird.
really cool.
It's like you're double dipping. You know, you're double dipping the subscription crowd and you're double dipping the free to play crowd with what it appears like right now.
I don't agree with your free-to-play argument. I think the game is way too young to even consider a free-to-play model. I think you should at least have it 12 months in the wild with proper players before you start letting in all the guests and the sweatshoppers and the botters, because that's just going to destroy the economy. And if they do something like that, I don't think the game is going to be viable in 12 months.
Okay. They kind of need that barrier.
Initially, it's exactly the same as Eve, right? What did it take? It took 15
Over a
years,
decade.
right? More than a decade to actually open it up for free to play. It was fundamentally free to play, which is also the same design that you have in Albion. It is free to play. They can change it so you don't actually have to pay for the game as such, but you have to pay for the first 2 or 3 months of premium, which is basically like subbing, and then you have to play to pay, right? Just like Eve with Plex. I'm pretty sure that's where they're going to land, and I hope that's where they're going to land, because opening this up for the free-to-play crowd is just detrimental to the economy. It's already chaotic and a little bit stupid in my opinion because of the overflow of free labor and free focus. That's why everything is just priced out of the blue, and it makes no sense.
Yep. All right. Does anyone else have anything else to add to our discussion here? It's been really great so far, guys.
I think we need to start turning up those sinks because otherwise it's just going to take so long for it to stabilize.
Yeah, I agree.
They fix these auction things and make sure that they have a proper oversight, and maybe they should dedicate 1 or 2 developers to only look at the economy.
That's a really good point.
Well, we've seen what happens when you don't have that for too long, then it all crashes.
Yeah, because then you have players like us mess it all up. Like I'm not even. I'm just saying, like the market-minded people will mess it all up for their own uses. They'll mess it all up.
I think game development wise, they need to find a way to destroy more gear, and I think that's what you're talking
yeah,
about when you say sinks.
Yeah, but
And
that's item sinks, right? Definitely.
Yeah.
But I'm also talking about fundamental things like silver sinks. They need to make sure that those things are balanced. That's why I was surprised when Bersilac told me that the whole black market design, which I am so impressed by, and I think it's brilliant, that they don't have something similar when it comes to silver and raw materials, which is
Well-
weird, because that's exactly where you would want to have some sort of sink faucet control when you've already built a pretty much novel system like the black market. Why don't you tie in the other 2 factors of the whole macroeconomy?
I mean, in theory, that's supposed to happen through the how the high tier resources are created, right? Because you have to use so many low tier resources to make one tier 8 resource, for example. And because of that stuff that is then destroyed in the black zone, that's supposed to where the resources are getting destroyed, because the high tier guilds are using 7.3, 8.3 in their GVGs, and that just costs so many low tier resources. But currently, like many people on the high level complain that there's not enough stuff getting destroyed, and partially because of how safe territories are right now. I don't know. You probably don't have a lot of experience with how the defender bonus on territories work.
Not yet, no.
And they just increased the defender bonus on territories just for the launch week, or for the launch time, basically. Where it's right now, high tier guilds don't even want to compete to try to take high tier Black Zone plots from each other, because they just get so many passive bonuses. And once they lower that, there's actually a reason to fight over those things, maybe. So I think right now some of the high level PvP where really expensive stuff gets destroyed is not happening to an extent that it could have been happening already. And once they find more ways to make fighting over plots worth it, and in the process of that destroying more high tier gear, then we might see a different impact of stuff that actually gets removed from the economy.
I think we gotta cut it there, man. That's a whole new fresh discussion, boy.
Yeah.
Ooh, you're talking diplomacy now, man. You're talking my language.
All right.
That
We
was
can
the
talk more.
Next episode.
Man, that's oh man, we've been trying to do this every 2 weeks. I swear to God.
We can talk longer. No problem.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. That'd really be great, man. Because that really we gotta talk later, man. But I think we gotta cut it. We gotta cut it because we've been going for almost an hour 40 minutes here. Impressive.
Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah. But hey, thank you very much, everyone. I think the setup is really good. Kind of like this open comm style scenario is actually really cool. So thanks for everyone that's been here. Really appreciate it. But let me pass the mic around for shout outs if you have one. Bogle, got anything? We'll start with you.
All right. Well, thanks for letting me on the show. Thanks for giving me a time to hop on and plugging the Albion Informer thing. The Albion Informer is a community news blog and podcast. I host this with my co-host Chosen. Greetings to you if you're listening. And we do 1, 2, 3 shows a week where we try to talk about stuff that's happening in Albion, PvP drama, other drama, and we try to keep you informed. So if you want to listen to a podcast, maybe on your way to work, when you can't play, when you don't have your tablet to play, you can just listen to us and stay informed about Albion. albioninformer.com/podcast.
And you're moving your SoundCloud soon, right?
We uploaded the first episode to YouTube yesterday, and we will have Twitch stuff upcoming potentially. So there's some stuff happening in the next weeks. Yes.
So SoundCloud just got some new funding, by the way.
Nice.
Yeah, like personally,
Everyone starts moving.
Yeah.
I stuck around. I just muscled through it. All right, Caleb, you got anything?
Oh, I only have the same shout out as I think I gave last time. Shout out to Foxfall for trying to pick apart the market and creating an API for us. And please hurry up, we need it.
Right. Hey, anybody from the crowd here? DTB, got anything? Anyone from the crowd? Elange, you got anything? Nope. All right, I'll do mine then. Hey, thank you very much, guys, for tuning in, and thank you for everyone, live audiences, our guests here, hosting from Albion Online and EventT. Thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate it. And my biggest shout out actually will go to our Mercs R Us group. I think from what I understand, we're going to be opening up our discussions to the public as far as being a hub for service trading or buy purchasing of services, to include donkeys if that's your thing. But we'll see how that goes. I'm really excited about being here, and hopefully we can actually kind of cover diplomacy with some of the more established players. That'd be really interesting to get into. But besides that, I don't really have anything else, guys. I think we're gonna cut here. Awesome. Thank you very much, guys. We'll get this uploaded to YouTube here shortly, and we'll see you next week, maybe 2. We'll see. All right, thanks, guys.
No problem.